The game never stops, and neither do we. Welcome to the SDH Network. We're always around the corner from everywhere. Morning Espresso brought to you by Oglethorpe University, Atlanta's premier undergraduate learning experience and soccer powerhouse. I'm Jason Longshore, and let's dig into the news of the day. And it kind of amped up overnight in Europe and continued this morning here on this side of the Atlantic. Let's start with the more recent news on the managerial carousel starting to spin out of control. Tottenham Hotspur, they have dismissed Thomas Frank, ending a tenure that never really had a chance to stabilize, but Spurs sit 16th in the Premier League. They're winless in their last 8 league matches, 2 wins in their last 17. What was supposed to be a reset has turned into a relegation fight, and the club are only 5 points above the drop zone, and they play Arsenal, the league leaders, next. The timing makes it even more jarring. Frank's final match was yesterday, a 2-1 defeat at home to Newcastle. He insisted that he was convinced he would still be in charge for the North London derby. He's not going to be. Less than 12 hours later, he was gone. Tottenham's statement said that they were determined to give him time, but the results and the performances forced this change. Now, injuries have played a part. James Maddison, the ACL injury before the season even began. Dejan Kulusevski, he's yet to play. Spurs invested heavily, but the league form collapsed anyway. Now, the strange positive is Europe. They finished 4th in the Champions League phase, directly into the last 16, which means that the next manager walks into a really weird situation. It's a relegation fight and a knockout run in the Champions League at the same time. That's not easy to navigate. Spurs are already weighing interim options, and also there are some long-term names that will be available, but not until after the World Cup, like former manager Mauricio Pochettino, who is busy with the U.S. men's national team right now. He's not going to leave the U.S. men's national team to go to Spurs right now, but would he take it after the World Cup? That's a strong possibility, and it sounds like there could be some interest. Another name that was linked with Spurs before they went with Thomas Frank was Roberto Zerbi. Now, Roberto Zerbi has been at Marseille. Well, not anymore. He has parted ways with Marseille by mutual agreement, according to reports, less than 2 years in charge. The decision came in the early hours of Wednesday morning in France. I believe it was announced at 2:35 a.m. local time. Interesting. That's always when you make your announcements. But the pressure was mounting on De Zerbi, and I think this was inevitable after being eliminated in the Champions League and a humiliating 5-0 loss to PSG in the Classico over the weekend. Marseille framed it as a collective decision involving ownership and sporting leadership taken in the best interests of the club, but there's reports out of France this morning that suggest the issues ran deeper than results. Constant tactical reshuffling, harsh public criticism, and a sense that De Zerbi had lost part of the dressing room. Now, Marseille are 4th in Ligue 1. They're still fighting for Champions League qualification, but they are stepping again into uncertainty. Now, here's the weird thing is De Zerbi will be a candidate for a Premier League return. Manchester United have admired his work in the past. Manchester City could be looking at him if Pep decides to leave at the end of the year. Again, Tottenham Hotspur were interested in him last summer before they hired Thomas Frank. But my concern about that from De Zerbi's standpoint is, how do you look at what's happened in Marseille and say, I still want to go in that direction? And I really look back at what happened after Ismail Kone was forced out of the club, and the videos that came out that I think the club put out to intend to make De Zerbi look strong. They actually made him look like a bully. It was a very bad look. And when you combine that with some of the harsh public criticism and other things we've seen from him this season, I would question bringing him in. And I think he's a brilliant manager, but I feel like he's maybe lost his grip a little bit. And the lashing out is going to be an issue for a lot of clubs. So we will see. There's also been reports of Italian clubs interested in bringing De Zerbi back there. So stay tuned. He's available now, but I'm not so sure that Manchester United, Manchester City, Tottenham Hotspur, I'm not so sure they'd be interested, and I'm also not so sure they should be interested. So we'll wait and see. Let's bring it back home. Atlanta United unveiled its new community kit for 2026. It's called the Spirit of 96. It is a design that's rooted in the Atlanta sporting identity. It's timed with the 30th anniversary of the Centennial Olympic Games. And it's a kit to kind of build a bridge between eras. Atlanta's preparing for the 2026 World Cup, 30 years after hosting the Olympics, 10th season of the club. So there is honoring the moment that first placed the city on the global sports map, the Olympics. Also things like the green with Atlanta's tree canopy, the gold with Atlanta United, gold being a massive part of the brand, also gold from the Olympics. All kinds of really cool details in this as well. The kit goes on sale this morning at 11 a.m. It is beautiful. I can't wait to see it in action. I was really impressed with it. And it was great last night. Madison Cruz and I were able to go to the event, the unveiling, and see lots of fans, lots of listeners, lots of Morning Espresso readers. So thank you for all the kind words. Thanks for all the great conversation. And this one's going to hit some people in the wallet for sure because they really nailed it on this whole campaign. And I am, again, I'm really excited to see this kit in action. I'm not going to rank it yet in terms of where it is. To me, and I was talking to people about this last night, I need to see the kit on the field in motion, full uniform. I need to see that aspect of it before I draw a huge conclusion. And then sometimes it changes over time. There were some kits that I didn't really like when I first saw it, and then I ended up loving it. So let's see. Let's see where this one falls. But, man, it looks really, really good. And as we continue to celebrate Atlanta United's 10th season in 2026, don't forget our Atlanta United at 10 series. Yesterday's installment focused on 10 defining homegrown moments. It was cool looking back at some of the things like Machop Chol becoming the locker room favorite of players from all over the world. One of our favorites, Machop. But lots of highlights, lots of stories. Homegrowns really contribute maybe more than anyone else to the DNA of what Atlanta United is, being kids that grow up in the club. They have a different feeling about the club. We've talked about that over the years. Tomorrow, we will have another installment in the Atlanta United at 10. So make sure your notifications are on for Soccer Down here on your social media platforms. All right, let's widen the lens a little bit to Major League Soccer. The season opens next week with Inter Miami and LAFC at the LA Memorial Coliseum, right across the street from BMO Stadium and LAFC's usual home. It's going to be packed. Lionel Messi versus Son Heung-min. It's one of those showcases that MLS dreamed about when it launched back in 1996. Sportico's new valuations show a bigger story of that growth from 1996 to 2026. The average MLS club is now worth $767 million. The league's 30 teams collectively valued at $23 billion. Inter Miami lead the way at $1.45 billion, just ahead of LAFC at $1.4 billion. Atlanta United fourth in the overall rankings, above $1 billion in value. One of the strongest business platforms in MLS. But the financial table is stretching a little bit, and this is maybe one of the next big conversations around Major League Soccer and what happens next. And we've been having this kind of up to this point. I think the revenue talk that came out yesterday shows that we were kind of heading in this direction anyway, and I think we've seen it on the field as well. Miami is now worth more than 3 times what Montreal is, and Miami is bringing in money on a game day revenue that is on par with major sports teams in the United States and other leagues. So the difference between MLS and other leagues in the United States right now is the massive national media checks. And I don't know when or if that gap bridges. When you look at MLS right now, the average valuation of teams is about half of what the average valuation of Premier League teams is. The Premier League is very scattered from number 1 to number 20. MLS is growing more scattered from number 1 to number 30. Parity is a goal of the league. I think the salary cap structure, I think the playoff format, it all lends itself to everybody having a chance to win. I think that's one of the really beautiful things about Major League Soccer, and it's a huge selling point, and they shouldn't lose that. But I do think the evolution of the league is taking you to a point where there will be haves and have-nots, or maybe at least haves and have-lesses, because it's just the revenues are starting to separate teams. The cap will keep you from completely running away. I don't think we will see situations like what Liverpool spent in the Premier League last summer versus what, the bottom team in spending spent in England. I don't think you'll see those gaps in terms of spending and then quality of squads and all that. There's structure to prevent that, but there will be increasing gaps. And is that a good or a bad thing? I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think it is just where sports go, and you start to see some separation. But you don't want to see the situation that we see in some leagues. And I always think about the Bundesliga in this because your league has to have a compelling story. And I think a compelling story in a league format is more teams having a chance to win it. I think when you see great stories like we saw in Italy last year and maybe this year with teams chasing and quite a few different ones involved, it's more compelling. It can be really compelling if it's two teams going back and forth and you have that. Absolutely. But I think the MLS, with the playoff structure especially, you feel like you have a shot to win it. We went through that firsthand in 2024 here in Atlanta. But the growing disparity in revenues is going to change the way MLS feels. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I do think they have to continue to fight to keep as much parity as you can realistically. The next transformation for the league is structural with the calendar change starting next year. What will that do to continue or change this growth pattern that we're seeing? Kurt Badenhausen from Sportico is on SDH AM this morning with John Nelson. He'll be talking all about his reporting at Sportico. Look forward to that conversation and checking that out. All right, the refill. Let's go headlines around the world. We'll start here on the domestic side. San Diego, they have reached the round of 16 in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Finished off Pumas 4-2 on aggregate. 1-0 loss in Mexico City was not enough to overturn it. Pablo Cisniega made 8 saves last night to push San Diego into the round of 16. James Donaldson made 5 saves for the U.S. They booked their U17 World Cup return. They drew the Dominican Republic 1-1. They finished with 10 men. Malik Jakupovic, the striker from Philadelphia Union 2, he scored again. The U.S. held on, but James Donaldson from Atlanta United 2 got the job done in goal for the U.S. They'll be going back to the World Cup. Tyler Adams, he is ahead of schedule after an MCL tear. He's returned to Bournemouth's squad as an unused substitute. That's good news for both the Cherries and for the U.S. men's national team, with Belgium and Portugal coming to Atlanta in March. Philadelphia Union, they have signed Agustin Inesio. He is a attacker from Boston River in Uruguay, one of the great club names in South America, Boston River. He's a Miami native. He's got experience in Spain, Belgium, Uruguay. He adds another dynamic option to Philadelphia's attack. Robert Lewandowski, news out of Spain that the Chicago Fire have made a formal push for him. He would be the face of the franchise. He's got a big decision to make kind of soon with his contract up at Barcelona in the summer. Tigres, they got past Forge FC last night. Forge got it to 2-1 in the last 15 minutes of the match through penalty. But then 2 goals from Rodrigo Aguirre, that leads Tigres through. They immediately responded with a 3rd goal and stretched it to a 4th one. Tigres will play probably FC Cincinnati next. We'll have to wait and see if they get to that stage. That one will be determined shortly. Como, they stunned Napoli in the Coppa Italia. Como, first Coppa Italia semifinal in 40 years. They got through Napoli on penalties. They will play Inter in the semifinals. Freiburg, they have advanced in the German Cup. Some drama there. They survived Hertha Berlin on penalties. Melbourne City, they've made some history in Asia. They qualified for the Asian Champions League elite knockout stage for the first time. 2-1 win at Ulsan with a stoppage time goal for Melbourne City. Al-Ittihad, they have thrashed Al Gharafa 7-0, led by Hussam Ouar hat trick. That confirms their place in the next round. Let's go to some structural discussion. The EFL Championship, their clubs will vote on March 5th on expanding the championship promotion playoffs from 4 teams to 6 teams. That's similar to what they do in the National League promotion playoff. In the Netherlands, there is talk about expanding the pyramid. Top amateur clubs have asked the Dutch Federation to explore promotion and relegation up into the professional second division. There's right now not a formal process between the second division and the third division. Reforms are possible after the 2027-2028 season. Our old friend Jose Martinez, formerly the Philadelphia Union, he has not made friends at Corinthians. Corinthians in Brazil have activated their legal department. They are assessing possible action against Jose Martinez. He delayed his return to the club by about a month and then returned with a serious knee injury. He's out for the year. I don't know what this is going to look like. It's very, very strange and complicated. We'll keep up with that one. As we've been keeping up with John Textor, there are reports that the high-interest loan that he received to start his repayment of Atlanta United for Thiago Almada, not repayment because he never paid anything in the first place, $10 million have been paid according to reports in Brazil. And the reports that came out just a little while ago are discussing plans that Textor might have to convert that loan into equity, which would ease debt pressure while he, I guess, thinks that it would give him more control over Botafogo's structure. But Botafogo is owned by Eagle Football. Aries, in their situation with what Textor owes them for helping buy Lyon in France, that's become an issue that has pushed Textor out of Eagle in control, but he's maintained the control due to the Brazilian legal structure of Botafogo. He's trying to reinforce that according to speculation and reports, but I don't know if that's going to work in the long term. So who knows? We'll see. It's going to take 5 more twists and turns that we don't see coming. Just buckle up. Make sure the seatbelt is on. All right, around the corner from everywhere, SDH AM, I mentioned it, loaded this morning. Kurt Badenhausen from Sportico joining John Nelson to talk about the valuations report, what it says about the league's future. Aaron Adams stops by to talk about the NXT Foundation and what he is doing to create more pathways to elite coaching, elite training in Georgia. Plus, old friends coming back to visit Lagos Kunga, former Atlanta United homegrown. He joins to talk about his move to Portland in the USL. And Ronan Wynn talks about his move from Atlanta United to the OFC Pro League. All that on SDH AM this morning. If you miss it live, you can always check it out on demand on YouTube, on Twitch, and the podcast edition. Just go to soccerdownhere.net and click listen or watch. So a chaotic night of managerial churn kind of sets the tone for this Wednesday. Tottenham Hotspur, they need a new manager after pulling the plug on Thomas Frank. Marseille, they need a new manager after moving on from Roberto de Zerbi. Does de Zerbi go to Tottenham? Who knows? Here in Atlanta, a lot of people are going to be clamoring to pick up the Spirit of 96, the community kit. Just a reminder of the city's global sporting legacy and, look, the next chapter with the 2026 season less than 2 weeks away. MLS, a lot of talk about those valuations from Sportico. Check that out. Again, check out the conversation on SDH AM. It's exciting. It's fun times right now. I feel like we're talking business. We're talking the football on the field. We're talking the managers off the field. We're talking branding. We're talking development. I feel like we're talking about all these different things on SDH at the moment. Hopefully you're enjoying all of the conversation. Thank you for being a part of it, and we will have more Morning Espresso for you tomorrow.